Imagine this. You're a factory worker. One day, a machine breaks down. The next day, the NKVD shows up at your door. Your crime: wrecker. 10 years of forced labor. No wages. Imagine this. You're a farmer. You sold a few sacks of potatoes on the side to feed your family. Someone reported you. Your crime: Kulak speculator. 8 years of forced labor. No wages. Imagine this. You received a letter from a relative abroad. You didn't even open it. But the authorities already knew. Your crime: suspected foreign espionage. 15 years of forced labor. No wages. In Stalin's Soviet Union, crimes weren't for punishing criminals. Crimes were for manufacturing labor. As for wages, don't even think about it. The only benefit this system offered was this. If you were lucky enough, your family would get arrested too. That way, the whole family could be reunited in the labor camp. Today, we're going to talk about the Soviet Union's unique art of labeling and how it became a lethal weapon for driving ordinary people into unpaid or nearly unpaid hard labor. First, you have to understand the fundamental driving force behind this system. Under the Soviet system, especially during the era when Stalin was pushing massive industrialization, the state needed an enormous labor force to complete colossal projects that were ruinously expensive, brutally harsh in conditions, and that absolutely no one would volunteer for. Mining for minerals in the Siberian permafrost, building railway lines inside the Arctic Circle railways that often led to nowhere, built only to carry ore from mines to smelters. Digging canals to connect seas with shovels and pickaxes through frozen earth and solid rock, one scoop at a time. Recruiting workers directly for these jobs was far too expensive, so expensive that no normal economy could afford it. You'd have to pay wages, provide housing, guarantee the most basic safety conditions and food supply. But wages, housing, and food were all scarce resources in that era. So the Soviet leadership devised an ingenious alternative. Instead of spending money to hire workers, they would manufacture laborers through political convictions. No contracts needed, no wages, no safety measures, just a criminal charge and a black sedan. This system was carefully designed and ran with brutal efficiency for decades. Its core principle was as simple as it was cold. The core of this system lay in two qualities of the labels pinned on people's heads: arbitrariness and terror. Labels, that is, various criminal charges, real or fabricated. They required no concrete evidence. All they needed was a shred of suspicion, a denunciation letter from a neighbor or colleague, or simply the fact that you had the wrong social origin. Your parents were minor officials under the old regime. Your ancestors ran a small business. Your file listed a bloodline you shouldn't have. Once these labels were pinned on you, they were almost impossible to remove. You could deny it, you could appeal, you could write 100 letters of protest, but in that system, denial itself was failure to show proper remorse, which only made your crime worse. The most common labels came in several varieties. Let's list them clearly. First label: enemy of the people. This was the biggest, heaviest, and most versatile label of all. It had no precise legal definition whatsoever, and precisely because it had no definition, it could be pinned on anyone. From high officials in the Politburo to peasants on remote collective farms, from decorated generals to ordinary women on factory assembly lines, anyone, at any time, for reasons no one could comprehend, could become an enemy of the people. The practical meaning of this label was simple: you were politically unreliable. And politically unreliable was, in itself, a reason that could be infinitely stretched. Second label: wrecker. If the machine you operated broke down, even if that machine had been running for 20 years and its last maintenance was 3 years ago, you had deliberately sabotaged state property. If the factory failed to meet its production quota, even if raw materials hadn't arrived, even if the power had gone out, you were intentionally undermining the Soviet economy. Normal wear and tear, technical failures, management chaos, aging equipment, these objective causes had no explanatory power in the face of the wrecker label. A machine broke, you wrecked it. The plan wasn't met, you wrecked it. This chain of logic had no complicated middle links. It had only two ends: the damage and you. Third label: spy. If you had any foreign connection whatsoever, even a distant cousin you hadn't spoken to in 30 years, you were a potential spy. If you spoke a foreign language in the USSR of that era, learning a foreign language was itself a suspicious act. Was your purpose in learning it to communicate with foreign powers? If you received a letter from abroad, even if you never opened it, even if the sender just asked, "How is the family?" the mere fact that you had contact with the outside world was enough to constitute suspected espionage. Fourth label: kulak. This label originally targeted relatively well-off peasants in the countryside, but in practice, its scope went far beyond the rural world. In cities, anyone who had expressed dissatisfaction with collectivization could be classified under this label. Anyone who did a little private trading on the side, like swapping homegrown vegetables for a neighbor's eggs, could be branded a kulak speculator. The common characteristic of all these labels: they didn't need evidence, they only needed a label. The process of labeling was usually accompanied by two scenes. First scene, the public denunciation meeting. On the factory floor, on the collective farm's threshing ground, in the university auditorium, the masses were organized. Your colleagues, your classmates, your neighbors of many years, one after another walked up to the podium, faced the microphone, and read out accusations against you. The things they accused you of may have had nothing to do with your actual behavior. They were simply completing a task assigned by the organization. You were not allowed to defend yourself. You could only stand on the stage, head bowed, listening to people you had known for most of your life use the most vicious language to transform you from a human being into a label. Second scene, the secret nighttime arrest. The NKVD usually chose to act late at night. They would silently park the black sedan downstairs, walk up, and knock on your door, neither rushed nor slow, like it was routine paperwork. You wouldn't be allowed to say goodbye to your sleeping family. You wouldn't even be told where you were going. You would only be ordered to pack a few changes of clothes. Then the door would close behind you. Your family would stand there, staring at the empty hallway, not knowing if you would ever come back. Most of the time, you wouldn't. These two scenes, public denunciation and nighttime arrest together, created a climate of fear that blanketed the entire society. Neighbors would denounce neighbors. Colleagues would accuse colleagues. In some extreme cases, children were even encouraged to expose their own parents' reactionary remarks at home in their school essays. No one could trust anyone. Every person was a potential label. Every person could also become the hand that pinned the label on someone else. After a person was taken away, their family would usually suffer the consequences too. The wife would be fired from her factory because she was the wife of an enemy of the people. The children would be isolated and humiliated at school because they were the offspring of a traitor. The entire family might be evicted from their original housing and relocated to a single unheated room in a communal barracks, or ordered to leave the city within a set time without any explanation. Now came the most core part of the system, transforming these labeled ones into labor. After extremely perfunctory trials, sometimes lasting only a few minutes, the judge possibly never having even opened the case file in front of him, or, in many cases, with no trial at all, these people were sentenced to long-term imprisonment. And the place where they served their sentences was not an ordinary prison with high walls, cells, and barbed wire. The place they served their sentences was the main administration of camps, spread across the entire territory of the Soviet Union, the Gulag system. Inside the Gulag, these criminals, with all sorts of labels pinned on them, were transformed into the state's cheapest, most obedient, and most expendable laborers, people who didn't need to be treated as human beings at all. They were driven to complete the most dangerous, most backbreaking, and deadliest work. In the Kolyma gold mines, one of the most remote and coldest regions of the Soviet Union, prisoners dug into the permafrost with the most primitive hand tools at temperatures of -50 degrees. No machinery, no heating equipment, daily food rations, not even sufficient for the body to maintain its most basic temperature. On the construction site of the White Sea-Baltic Canal, hundreds of thousands of prisoners used shovels, pickaxes, and wheelbarrows to carve a 227-kilometer waterway through frozen earth and rock. The official death toll is widely believed to be far below the real figure, but even the number the regime itself admitted tens of thousands is already horrifying. Unofficial estimates push that number much higher. They built railways inside the Arctic Circle, many of which would never reach their designed transport capacity, because by the time the rails were laid, the resources along the line were already nearly exhausted. In uninhabited primeval forests, they built one industrial city after another from scratch. They paved roads with their bodies, drove piles with their bones, used their last breath to fill in the ambitious numbers on the charts of the State Planning Committee. Their labor was packaged by the official propaganda machine with a beautiful phrase, reform through labor. But strip away that shiny rhetorical coat and its essence was naked. Systematic enslavement at the cost of human lives. The economic logic of the Gulag followed a precisely calculated iron law. Food and rest time were forcibly tied to labor quotas. Meet today's quota, and you earned the right to that bowl of soup, thin as dishwater. Fail to meet it, and you starved. Fail for several consecutive days, and your rations would be cut further. Then you had even less strength to work, so you missed the quota by even more, and your rations were cut to almost nothing. This was a death spiral, by deliberate design. Its architects knew exactly what the endpoint was. When a prisoner finally collapsed, his labor value was assessed in the Gulag's ledger as fully consumed. A depleted labor unit was not a loss, it was a consumable item normally produced during the operation of this machine. Tomorrow, a fresh batch of labeled ones would arrive in cattle cars to fill those newly emptied bunks. Human life here was reduced to a cold, calculable, replaceable, and prematurely disposable labor unit. This assembly line of label send to labor camp forced labor became a brutally efficient model for Soviet industrialization, especially for resource extraction in its remote regions. It didn't just destroy the lives and dignity of countless individuals, it also manufactured a prolonged, pervasive chilling effect throughout the entire society. Anyone thought 3 times before speaking in public, because a single sentence could be twisted. Any worker dared not admit fatigue on the job, because low efficiency could be interpreted as deliberate slowdown. Any intellectual self-censored repeatedly while writing, because one unfortunate metaphor could be read as the opening line of a label. This system educated the entire Soviet population in the most extreme way. Don't stand out. Don't be different. Don't do anything that could be defined as suspicious. The safest way to live was to be silent like everyone else, obedient like everyone else, to hide yourself in the gray background like everyone else. This history serves as a profound warning. When the power to define who is a criminal is subject to no constraints, when law is reduced to a tool of political necessity, when human value is degraded to that of consumable material for achieving state goals, then the entire society will pay an incalculable human cost. And that cost was never paid by the people who designed this system. It was paid by those who collapsed with pickaxes in their hands on the frozen earth of the Arctic with their lives.